My name is Kamie Anderson, and I was born and raised in Brownwood, Texas. The story of my life isn't glamorous or pretty. It's filled with trials and tribulations of many kinds. Although it could fit in the genre of tragedy, I choose to focus on the positives and the lessons learned along my journey. I desire to share my story and the struggles I faced to give hope to those who may be going through similar circumstances. I can foresee using this with older secondary students to help them express their own concerns, fears, struggles, and victories. I hope to become proficient with this media enough to share it with my future students. I was born to very young, poor parents. They would make a go of it for a couple of years, but end in divorce when I was only 3 months old. I would only see my father a handful of times in my life, and he would never provide for my welfare. My mom would struggle to make ends meet. As a high school dropout with a GED, she was a waitress, a bartender, and sang in nightclubs. This did not leave her with much time to be a parent. One memory I have of her was singing Coat of Many Colors by Dolly Parton to remind me, one is only poor, only if they choose to be. This is where my papa stepped in. He was my anchor in the storm. Although he was far from perfect, I knew I could always depend on him. He knew my life would not be easy, and I would have to take care of myself. So he taught me important life lessons that I carry with me today, very much like the song by the Judds, Grandpa. He was and will always hold a very special place in my heart. By the time I was 14, my mother had given up on parenting and left me. I became very depressed and started acting out in dangerous and destructive behaviors. I even contemplated ending my life. As I was working up the courage to actually go through with the act, God spoke to me and told me He was not through with me yet. His amazing grace saved me that day, and I promised myself 2 things. First, my future children would never feel the way I did. And second, I would do everything in my power to help other teenagers going through similar circumstances. I have done my best to keep those promises. Due in part to a desire to honor my grandfather, in part to get out of my hometown, and in part to find a way to go to college one day, I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. I would do things I never thought possible. My years in the Marine Corps would change my life forever. The confidence I gained, the skills I learned, and the relationships I made have made me the woman I am today. The Marines' hymn still stirs emotions in me and reminds me there's nothing I can't do. It was at this time that I got married and started my family. The births of my 5 children were the most amazing experiences of my life. Miracle by Celine Dion only brushes the surface of what I felt holding those beautiful, perfect babies. I would spend the next 21 years of my life keeping my promise to myself, devoting everything to raising my children, seeing to their wants and needs, and doing my best to break the cycle of my parents. There would be many good times as I watched my children grow into wonderful young men and women. I would also start my degree at San Antonio College so I could work around their schedules as I tried to set a good example for my children. Unfortunately, things would not work out, and in 2010, I would go through a divorce. My number one concern was my children, and I fought for their well-being and to ensure they would not be casualties of the divorce. Much time would be spent in prayer, and after some rough waters, I can say we all came safely through the storm. Praise You in the Storm by Casting Crowns got me through this time with the reminder that God will always be my help in times of trouble. My second promise to myself was to help other troubled teenagers. I got involved with the youth group at my church and discovered a passion for ministry. This grew into a blessing I could never have foreseen. I have worked with youth for the last 14 years and have been on 19 mission trips. This past year, I had the privilege of working with children in Kenya, Africa. My heart was both broken and restored all at the same time. If Everyone Cared by Nickelback reminds me that if everyone would find the time to give of themselves, this world would be a better place. I am also reminded of the quote from Mahatma Gandhi, "You must be the change you wish to see in the world." At last, I have found my purpose and calling in this life, and nothing in my past was in vain. I embrace my life and look forward to what God has for my future. As I enter this next phase of my life, juggling being a college graduate, working on my master's degree, being a GG, teaching full-time, working with youth, I could be afraid. It is a balancing act that sometimes leaves me exhausted and feeling as if I cannot possibly do it all. However, I look at where I've come from, what I've triumphed over, who is watching over me, and I thank Chris Tomlin for reminding me, whom shall I fear? Thank you all for taking the time to listen to my story. I hope that it will remind you that no situation is too dark, that you cannot one day stand in the light again. This project has made me reflect and take the time to truly see how blessed I am and how far I've come. To God be the glory.